motion to,
Sorry, guys.
you're good.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the agenda has been approved. Moving on to the minutes from our April 4th meeting. Did anyone have any suggested changes or anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so then moving on to new business. We had sent out a preliminary plat for the lagoon site. Oh, a little history on that. It sounds
Yeah.
like it was being.
It's a land swap, yeah. This is property where the new wastewater treatment plant is located, was owned by AJ Spiegel. And the city made an agreement with him that they would swap the land where the old lagoon sites were for the property where the new wastewater treatment plant is at. So what was sent out to you is the preliminary plat for AJ to move forward with a 200,000 square foot warehouse. And what he wants to do, I don't think he's going to start construction this year because of building materials and things like that, but he wants to get the site ready. There was just recently a phase 1 completed. I have not read through that yet, but that was one of the contractual components of that agreement. So again, this is just taking a very high level preliminary look at it from V&K. And if you could click on the preliminary plat lagoon site, I've got some notes out there that Steve Thompson had put out, or Jeff Rausch. And it's on my preliminary plat review document. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read it. I think there's like 7 pages and it shows the sketch of the site. But you can see that there's really not much that he had to comment on. So what we're looking for is your approval to take this to council for their blessing as well.
So lot 1 is,
Right now, he wants to divide it off into 3 parcels, and he's going to be doing this in a phased concept. That phase 1 is going to be that 200,000 square foot warehouse. I do not have any idea what he wants to do on the other 2 parcels. Right now, there's bags out there. They're still trying to drain the lagoon to get all the contaminants out. That process should be done, I would say later this year. But again, we're just taking a kind of a 30,000 foot view and just looking at what he wants to do on that for the first phase for the warehouse.
so is that where they're taking all that rock to?
Yeah, yep, all that rock is going to fill in all that lagoon site, the holding wells or cells, if you want to call them that.
Any thoughts?
Yeah.
So I think that initial page, it just said that there was 2 suggested changes potentially to
Yes.
the plat.
And those have been sent back to Jim Bosley at Origin Design. Again, this is just a procedural process that we have to go through that you've all been part of with prior projects.
Yeah, right. That's one that goes past the post office, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, right, this one goes past the post office.
Yes, that is correct.
It's at the end where like the old, what is it? lawn clippings and stuff used to be.
Oh, yeah,
I can't think.
I know what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So
Like the
basically you drive
Like-
straight. Compost,
compost.
Compost.
yeah, the compost used to be over there.
Yeah, so it just looks like a continuation of the street to make a cul-de-sac and
And I think that was one of the requirements that the city had way back in the day when they started talking about this, is that they wanted to make sure that that road was extended for future land use and hopefully industrial park acreage as well.
I mean, I think it looks like it would make sense for that area to kind of complete what's already there.
And lot one is to be abandoned or what? Or that's where he's gonna put that building.
That's where they're going to be putting the building. And like I said, I'm not sure what he's doing for phase 2 and 3 or parcels 2 and 3. It hasn't been replatted at this point. That was something that city council needs to agree to as well, but I don't see any issues there.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on to the urban renewal plan amendment.
The reason I wanted to have the meeting today is that I was hoping that I would have this ready for the next council meeting, and there's been some twists and turns. I just found out over the weekend that the 3 projects that we have listed in the urban renewal plan, the one being the turn lane project out here, which has now been kind of moved to next year because we're having some, we're working with the landowners on a partial acquisition. Dollar General needed to be added back in there. It was added a few years ago, but they've kind of been back behind the 8 ball to get this project going. So we wanted to make sure they had an accurate base valuation moving forward. And then the third project was AJ Spiegel's property, which is for Parks and Recreation for future use, which is north of the tracks over by well 2. It's kind of behind the industrial park, and there's 2 holding lagoons. That's the only kind of aerial kind of idea where I can give you where the property is. And he has backed out of donating or even selling that property to us. So that property needs to be taken out of the urban renewal. So again, I just found this out over the weekend, but if we can go ahead and approve the 2 other projects, the Dollar General and then the turn lane project being part of this urban renewal, I'm okay with that. What we're just basically doing is we'll be taking this to council. Council needs to set a public hearing date for it. So no harm, no foul. I can have our bonding attorneys clean it up and take out that property that was added in there for recreation.
So why did he pull the property?
You'll have to call him. That urban renewal, it gives you all the information on the name of the project, you know, the use of the TIF. And again, this has all been vetted through council. It's just kind of sad that I've had to pull it once because of the project. And now I'm just gonna have one project by the time it's done. It's gonna be Dollar General, but
Right.
it's kind of where we're at.
Is that what was talked about at the last council?
Yes.
meeting?
Mhm. And we were gonna go ahead and have the public hearing tomorrow, but then we don't have enough time to there's been a holiday kind of flux in there and scheduling conflicts with the board of supervisors and the superintendent of schools. Those are the other taxing bodies that I need to have a meeting with to make sure they're okay with this. From what I understand, they typically don't show up anyway. But again, that's not unusual to have a taxing body not pay attention to something like this. But I need the blessing from planning and zoning to move forward.
I think what I read, I wouldn't have any concerns with making the motions to move forward with this, excluding the parkland acquisition project.
And this has all been, you know, vetted through council. I mean, we've talked about the projects that we want to put out there. So again, just doing that that natural next step and to have it brought before planning and zoning for your blessing.
I'll make a motion to approve their renewal. Five-year plan then.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
All right, and then moving on to the public hearing notification that we have some visitors here to speak to. So I know part of the agenda it had Deb's initial email just requesting that the Planning and Zoning Commission make a notification to property owners within 200 feet of a rezoning request property before it goes to this commission. So,
Yeah,
do you want to
so
kind of speak?
thank you, and Matt, you heard everything at the council meeting. And I guess if we were notified, my letter came postmarked March 29th. You guys passed it on March 7th. We had no idea. I did bring this same topic up back in April 2018, when I was on the commission, knew nothing about it until I felt the blast. I gave Matt a video of that, and it's very loud from my office. I'm only 285 feet from the blast. My property pin is 115 feet away. Just to give you an idea, the parking lot here, curb to curb, the width is 122 feet. And from this front door to Rachel and Matt Puccio's front door is 370 feet. So imagine sitting in your house and having something go off and not being in, knew nothing about it. So when I brought it to the commission, because it was zone A, and I was told it was rock excavation, and it's in the minutes, you can look it up yourself, that Mr. Mesher clarified it's rock excavation, it's not a quarry. But everybody had talked to, the blasters and everybody, when they come to my house and to the seismograph in my yard, they said, well, we're going to the quarry. So it's kind of obvious. If you've been by there, it's definitely a quarry. And I couldn't do anything about it because nobody wanted to bring it up or hear about it back in 2018. I did talk to some of the city council members. They were told it was temporary, and here it's going on for 6 years. And we've been told it's only pre-blast every time. And Melinda Birds has family that Forest Field Materials, and she brought it up to the mayor at the time, and he ended up hanging up on her. But anyway, this is not the first thing that I know that has alerted something to people and they knew nothing about it. For instance, the PUD plan on Birds Road there. I know, Matt, you were one of the people getting the petition because you didn't want apartments across the street. And I can respect that, and I do know that at that public hearing, there was people saying, how come we didn't know about this, you know? And at that time, the zoning just tabled it and let it go to public hearing, and then it was, you know, being brought back if you guys want to discuss it further. So I guess what I'm asking is if you'd be willing to change the ordinance, that any type of change in rezoning have letters sent out to people within 200 feet, rather than waiting for a public hearing, which is after the fact that you guys have met. And this is a very critical thing, this thing that you guys approved. It has a lot of liability with the city. It has liability with our tax money, that, you know, this road's gonna have to be replaced because the weight limits of the gravel. And Matt was there at the council public hearing, so he's well aware that people's concerns, and maybe he'd rescind his yes vote to a no vote after listening to people. So what I'm saying is if we could change that, we could have had a voice and told you about our concerns, because you'll be surprised at what we're finding out of a lot of things that we're not notified, there's not the correct permits. And I know, I don't know if I have structural problems right now, but we don't know what this is gonna do in the future. I sit in the same limestone bedrock as what that blasting is. And I know Peg and them redid their house and they have structural cracking. And I guess if any of you guys live that close, you would understand and not just run this through as part of, you know, giving you the green stamp to say, okay, we approve this. There is such thing as spot zoning as well. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with that, but I suggest maybe really look into your ordinances and what is really qualified for that. It's my understanding that just a couple months ago, Joel Callahan wanted to zone something C1 for 55 and older. That was turned down. And I believe he wanted to put a conditional use. So when you conditionally use something, that's all you can put. He can't turn around and say, I'm gonna put up apartments there. When you make a conditional use, it specifically has to be for that use. So again, you know, this is being noted as a quarry, which has a lot of concerns for a lot of people. With that being said, are you guys in agreement to do something like that? Or, you know, we can watch the agendas, but like, I thought the meetings are the first Mondays of the month. It got changed today. So I would have missed this if it was the same thing coming up. So anyway, when I was on the P&Z, I would actually look at the council minutes as well. But now that I'm not, I don't really look. I know now. I don't know if Peggy has any additional information or
I
not.
just had, and I don't know, I've not been in a. First want to ask you, you in fact said this was approved by the planning zone to be considered by the city council, is that correct?
So-
The rezoning
Yes,
to go from A1, okay. Have any of you been to the site? Have
We-
you-
I personally have been.
Okay. Have you noted the proximity to other properties?
Mhm.
Was that ever a consideration or a concern?
It was, and that's when we met with Bennett Explosives and talked about their project, inspecting the property to make sure that the readings are within the parameters to not cause structural damage.
And I'm just curious, do any of you live within 200 feet of it?
No, I do not.
Because we do, and I'm a real estate agent, so I wear a lot of hats. I'm a real protection factor when it comes to our community and property values in our community, as Heather does. The potential of this, the way that this has started, the way that it's kind of just gotten to where it is today. We really don't have any answers as far as who gave the blessing. Heard of the attorney that, you know, stated in the public hearing that they were bestowed a blessing by someone to start blasting to begin with. Doesn't sit well that there's not a way to find out why this activity was allowed to begin with. Not only allowed to begin with, but to progress as it has. We've seen the aerial, but we've seen drone pictures of where it was just a couple of years ago to where it is now. Opening that up to an M2 designation, even with conditional, even with provisions, even with this and with that, it's a scary prospect because of what M2 could mean. And most times, things like this are only governed by the people around it that say, why is there blasting? And people say, because somebody said they could. We're the ones who hear it, we're the ones who feel it, we're the ones who are worried about the effects of it. Most people can just go on with their day and think, well, it doesn't affect me therefore. But when I've been doing the research that I've been doing about how this whole thing has come to happen to begin with, and the fact that it's to the point right now that it's on the brink of being approved by the city, it's mind-boggling. I have researched the code, I have researched the permitting process, I have talked to the DNR and the EPA and the town supervisors and the zoning people and the environmentalists, and there's not a person, not an educated person that I've talked to who thinks this makes an ounce of sense. It doesn't fit there. The potential risks for the hazard alone of that road and its proximity to Catholic school, a quarter of a mile, not even away from it, that alone should scare the pants off of the city. Because if some little person gets hurt at that school, it's going to be a big problem. And I can tell you, if somebody gets hurt in front of my house, one of my children gets hurt from this, and the proper protocol wasn't taken with regard to the safety and design of the road, or the potential pitfalls of contamination in our well, or the contaminants from the carcinogens and the dust that it's blowing all over our home, and our food, and our animals, and our animals' food, and our animals' water, there's going to be a lot of liability there. I'm not coming in saying, you know, they'll be held to pay, but I'm kind of saying, how was this ever considered that this was a good idea? And why was it ever considered that this was a good idea? And if I were to come to this community, no matter what my background, and start blasting on a property that wasn't deemed appropriate for it, I would have been shut down so fast. So the fact that this has gone on to the fact that it is again to where it is today is preposterous. Rules after rules after rules. Your own zoning ordinance has been in violation for 6 years. And everybody knows it. So how do those things happen? And why isn't somebody stepping up and saying, this is not legal? This should have stopped before it even started. And furthermore, with regard to spot zoning, if you look it up and read about it, I've done a lot because one of the county supervisors advised me spot zoning. It's inappropriate and it's illegal. So it can't even be approved. If it does get approved, it will be a black eye. If it were my own concerns, if I were a noisy, obnoxious neighbor that just would have a bug in my mind because of what was happening, that would be completely different. I'm a reasonable, educated person. I've done a ton of research. I would guess more than most about how this came to be and where it's headed and what it could potentially be, and the rules and the violations and all of those things. Again, the fact that it is where it is today is mind-boggling. And I would like answers. I would like answers. I've sent a bunch of questions to the city council. My understanding is a lot of those questions couldn't be answered and need to go to the state to have those questions answered. And I wonder, with regard to what you folks do here, do you take into consideration, the safety of the road or their quality concerns, or were those things that were brought to your attention and it didn't register, or was that not anything that was ever considered or thought about? I mean, did you look at it? Did you look at the road? You were there. I mean, have you looked at Cox Springs Road? Do you realize there's no shoulder? My dad put a subdivision on the north edge of town, Dubuque. And the amount of shoulder and the guardrail that was required for a subdivision with a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit was crazy. He had to have a full shoulder and he had to put a DOT level, whatever, guardrail. If you drive by our house, you'll see the guardrail right now that falls into a ravine in a creek is about this tall and it's mangled because it's been run into about 3 times. And it's laying on our property, mind you, in a heap because people can't make the corner with pickup truck. And so we've sustained damage. I don't care about that. We clean up our property, we clean up the neighboring properties. You know, we're trying to be, you know, stewards there. But if you look at the sensibility of just that piece, if not all other considerations, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not here to discredit any of you or be condescending at all, any of you. I just want to ask you what kind of research was done, what kind of research needs to be done. And if there's a conflict of interest in some regard that would keep any of you from making the very obvious decision that this is not a good idea for the community in many regards, not just for my personal property. I happen to have a front row seat. That's the only reason I live near to begin with. And I'm grateful that I have a front row seat for that reason, so I can see it and watch it and understand what it means. Because most people don't have that, and therefore, like I said, out of sight, out of mind. So I guess I don't know what your role is at this point or what it can be, but if there's any room for anybody to change what we previously stated, or retract, or think again, or put it on hold until some studies are done. Everything that I've brought to the attention of anybody in any of those authorities or leasing from the engineering company and the county engineer with regard to the road and all these different people that I visited with about this, every one of them has said this is crazy. So again, if there's something you can do to change what decision has been made, I would ask you to do that. If there's further studies that can be done to prove my point, right or wrong, if the objections that I have or the information that I found is not valid or it doesn't matter, then I will stand corrected. And I hold no one accountable to that. But I think that when you do the research and ask the questions and actually get answers to those questions, it will be as obvious as can be that this is never for council's job, and this is your job. The council's job is to stand for the public above their personal interests. They're called to do that. They're an authority, and there are authorities above them that hold them accountable to that. I want you guys to consider those things and understand that there's a lot of people looking at this, scratching their heads a lot. And there wasn't one until we got a notification and I sounded the alarms to everybody in the community that I knew saying, what do you think about this? What do you mean? What does that mean? No way, seriously? No way, no way, no way. Nobody even knew it was coming. And so the fact that it got as far as it did is mind-boggling. But now people know. Now I have people checking up with me saying, what have you found out? What has been decided? What is happening now? It's under scrutiny.
Well, I can see that. So the function of planning and zoning is really to look at the community at large and really make decisions based on safety, public interest. And we take a lot of those variables that you mentioned into consideration when we're making decisions. We're all volunteers and we're all doing this out of the goodness of wanting to do good for the community. And so obviously it matters to us what the community thinks. And it's really hard when we're looking at a lot of properties and a lot of different scenarios that need decisions to be made. And so we're making those decisions. We're really trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we do the homework and the research and the things that matter to make it the right decision. I don't know that there's ever been a situation where we've been able to retract a recommendation that we've made. Because as you mentioned, the function of our committee is just to make recommendations. It's not to make the final decision. That's really the function of the plan or of the city council. And so I know we had the public hearing and I know that there was a lot of discussion there because I was there too. And it was great that you were there to be able to voice your perspective on the situation. Because, the council would take that into consideration as well. And so for us, this topic to talk about how do we notify people of, things that are happening in the community, I think there definitely is education and communication there that we can talk about to try to determine how we can really get the communication out to the community for the people that want to know more, that want to be, looped in on the conversations and recommendations.
That's when you say, and again, I appreciate your volunteerism. I absolutely do. I don't want to be sitting in your seats. And I don't judge any of you for where it's coming. I don't. When you say that you're looking out for the best interests of the community, I don't question that. I don't doubt that at all. This project in particular, what about it seemed favorable? Can you as a group talk about that? What about it seemed favorable?
Well, our initial perspective was that, obviously looking at the zoning, it's not zoned the way that the intended use or the requested use was being presented. So we thought that would at least spark conversation and to look at how do we manage or set parameters on what is there. Because now there's not. So I think it was kind of an initial start to really making sure that it was zoned according to use. And that was really the intent.
So it was kind of going to be to kind of more or less make what is there legal as opposed to, because as it stands with being zoned in the ordinance, it's very clear that gravel excavation is to conditional use. So if there was no change made, operations would have to cease by zoning policy. They're in violations of the zoning. It states that, if somebody is in violation and there is a protocol that person is made aware that they are fined, that the operations are to cease, they face jail time. I mean, it's all in the zoning. So what I'm curious about is it was zoned Ag 1 for a purpose. That was completely violated. There's no dispute that what is happening there, what has happened there for 6 years is not appropriate for the zoning. So I'm curious, why would you change the zoning to something that is less favorable for the community rather than stop the operation that is not favorable for the community? Nothing would have to be changed. It's already zoned A1, and if it remains A1, then it can't go any further. Right? Am I saying that? I mean, because as it stands, it's not allowed. Were there ever any violations or anybody that did anything about it? Does anybody know? When it was deemed, when it was identified by the state that when a person filed the complaint, which was not us, but I say that 100,000 times, it was not us. But when it was determined that they were operating illegally on that.
We weren't notified until December that they were awarded that license. So at that time, that's when I reached out to my DM, to Mary Jo McLean and said, listen, we've got this complaint and now you have to be rezoned to be able to continue
What's
this.
the M2 in place at that?
Yes, yeah,
So,
Yep.
so if it was looked at, that this gravel excavation or whatever you call it, for now, but gravel excavation is not allowed on anyone as it is currently zoning, and that hasn't changed. And that's why I'm asking, if I was on my property and I was doing something that was not allowed, what would the protocol be for me? What would this have been? Someone would have come and said, you can't do that. You must stop this, or you must get the appropriate whatever. In the meantime, everything shall cease. And what very much happened was that this started happening, not certain who gave the green light or blessing, still looking for that answer, who gave the green light on it to conduct illegal activities within city limits. Why do we say, you know what, we can blast 25 times and then we're gonna upset the whole community to turn it into a really good potential thing, all in the interest of whom? Why wouldn't we just stop? Because again, if you read the public hearing, with the exception of the people who stand to benefit, which are a handful, there's not a person in this community who wants this. It's not good for our property values. It's not good for our health. And it presents a huge safety hazard for the people coming up and down that road. The county reached out to the city regarding the hazards of school buses coming off of Highway 20 and onto Cox Springs Road. They are in the doing research right now how to extend the frontage road so the buses don't have to come off of 20 onto Cox Springs Road. And we're gonna put gravel trucks there? Anybody, was this part of the conversation? These are the concerns. We have kids on those roads. There's little people that, my kids used to ride bikes. There are kids that walk to and from Seton and to and from Piazza Elementary. And if that extension to, or if Cox Springs gets shut off at 20, then those gravel trucks are either coming down that brand new frontage road and still past the school, or they're coming through town down Burns Road past 2 schools. It doesn't make any sense. Right? I mean, does it? Can somebody tell me that it does make sense? Who gets a benefit?
I think, Peg, your point of how we communicate and how we look at moving forward was heard, and I don't think that any of us are in a position to try to speak to everything that has happened with where we got to.
So you were going, did you want to say something earlier?
Yeah. Call it quarry, whatever, from what I understand, it's get rock out of there so you can develop it, maybe put houses in or whatever. I don't see where, at the time, you'd have to go for another zoning change to put something commercial or anything else in there. Because them two is only for a 2-year period, am I
Yep.
correct? So I mean, at that point, it goes right back to you.
You know, but during that 2 years, you know, what about the people on the backside of that block? I mean, again, I'm a real estate agent, so I'm thinking for 2 years, or even us. What if something happens and we need to sell our house or want to sell our house? And we have to tell the people across the road that tell the people, well, there's a quarry right there. So, you know, we don't really know what it's going to be because look at the plans of what Piazza was supposed to be in that area. There's not a quarry there. And when we moved there 7 years ago, it was all for sale as residential, or going to be developed as residential. So we were trying to buy some of it, it was out of our range, we couldn't get it done. No hard feelings, that's fine, it wasn't in the cards for us. But then for 2 years or better, they worked on a retirement community at length. They had drawings, they had plans, they had meetings. I'm a real estate agent, my years are all over. And then the plug got pulled. And then my friend Sarah was when we put the therapeutic horse riding place there. He's going to gift the land, just like he was going to gift that land to Sarah. to do her therapy for her kids with autism. They worked on that for a very long time, to the point they asked us if they could bring the horses to our property to get them acclimated to the noise of the railroad, so they could get the horses on the tracks. And then it stopped. He pulled the plug. So when someone tells me this is the intent, and my understanding was the reason for the mining was in order to put a road there. If you look at it, they've got a mile of frontage on the east side of that. They've got a mile of frontage on the west side of that. Why on earth would they need to blast that hillside out to make a driveway in a place you wouldn't put a driveway anyway because it's a hazard? You got the railroad right there, and that's a curve. You would never put the driveway there. So I think that it's a mining operation for him to make or save money, which I don't begrudge anybody of, but to the detriment of our community. You could put a road almost anywhere on that 300 acres or whatever it was on the original. It doesn't have to be at that spot. The quarry is not there so he can put a road there. That quarry is so he can mine and get as much out of that as he can. And then, yeah, maybe he'll put it into residential, but the intentions have changed 3 times in 7 years since we've lived there. So I don't want to put a lot of stock in what the intentions are in 2 years or 3 years. Because he told another neighbor they were blasting for 10 years. My friend went up and visited with him when the blasting first started, and he told them we'll be there for 10 years blasting. So, I don't want to put anything to bet on intent because the intentions have come and gone, which is totally evident in this, the thing you just talked about. The recreation land plug just got pulled because I don't know why, I don't know that you're making guesses on that, but do you understand their concern there? I don't believe it, and I don't want to change this in town to given the zoning, what is allowed on Route 2, it's downright scary.
I think at this point, your best argument is with the city council. I mean, when the sun sets, their decision is final.
But your decision weighs heavy.
Yeah, and I understand that.
that.
And everything, we're taking all this information in. We're not taking this, we're listening to you. But I think we're really kind of escaping the real reason why that agenda item is on here for the public hearing notification. So that's kind of what I want to stick to. And again, I appreciate the comments. I mean, it's very valuable at this level and it's very valuable at the council level. But I want to kind of keep on task.
No, I appreciate it, and I didn't mean to just go.
No. It's because you're passionate about it.
Well, and I wasn't sure again. I don't want to sound condescending.
No.
And I will only want to be diplomatic, and I only want to say, I do have a front row seat, and I do appreciate the thing. I'm such a huge fan of Piasta. But when I look at this and I see this just got a recommendation to go to the next level, I think, how did that? Didn't anybody, and maybe my bad, I should have been watching and paying attention. I wasn't aware and addressed that, but I cannot find the basis that decision was made. It's been made. If it can't be undone, then we will take it up with the council. And maybe that's, maybe that's the end of it. I want to put a face to it, that it is important and it does matter. And if you guys stood for it before, I hope that you'll change that and say to the council, you know what, even on a personal level, you know what, we passed it, but I don't think this is a good idea anymore. And I think
on their part, they had Bennett talk and say how safe this and that. But the thing that Bennett isn't environmentally know what type of soils are underneath that, as far as an engineer looking into the soils and environmentalist. But that rock, limestone, is known for structural damage. And that's should be a big concern to the city. Because they're gonna have a lot of liability on their hands if things start showing up in a couple years, 5 years, whatever, so. That's kind of where I get where you guys were told this, but if you heard the sound that was in my house, you can't tell me it's not doing something. Because my doors used to stay open in my bedrooms,
Yeah, ours
now they close.
don't anymore, even ours.
Or they'll go the opposite way.
Yeah.
So I see little things like that. So, and I get it. You were listening to what you were told. Again, he's not, doesn't know all the other stuff that happens underneath that. So they might be in their range, but that still does damage. Especially if he told us at the P and Z meeting that he was gonna take it down to level it, which I can't see it from my house. But if he's gonna level it, it's gonna take more than 2 years, so who knows, he might ask for an extension, you know? And if he's only gonna get 2 years, the blasting is gonna go every day to get to where he wants to be. And we were told, it's in the minutes, it was gonna be a pond there. So again, that changed. Now, I guess it's residential, but my question is, how are you gonna dig basements on solid rock?
Well, I imagine you're gonna put dirt over top again, that's, I think, and I'm just guessing. But I'm gonna guess he's gonna lay it out nicely, like, he wants to see it done. I don't know. I've learned where we last lived in 75 feet of time, because you had a sewer line in. Never had no effect whatsoever. Some guys that do the blasting ain't the same guys these are, but know exactly what they gotta do for minimal damage. Or no damage, just, and then you dig it out with an excavator. I ain't saying it can't happen, but
Well, they don't know, it's 25 blasts, again, that first.
Yeah.
time We were told they were making this, yes, first time they said they were gonna blast 3 times. That was 25 blasts ago. And then to find out it wasn't even legally, it's just my.
And then were you guys told it's gonna be another 3 blasts because that's why you passed it?
No. And again, you guys, I appreciate all the comments, but we're really veering away from the real reason, that this agenda item was asked to be put on for discussion. So, and again, I appreciate all the comments. I really do. No problem.
Nothing.
Yeah, but if you continue to have more questions, just bring it up, okay?
One more question.
I can try to answer them for you. Again, I'll try to help you as much as I can.
Thank you guys for being with this, but.
I do have one question. I apologize for showing up late. I got sidetracked. But Peg and I talked about this, the idea of spot zoning is if it benefits one person, but not anyone else around them, that's illegal. And it appears to us that that's exactly what this is, that when this was approved or recommended to the board, that's to change that zoning in that one area, that's spot zoning, which is illegal. Now, is that something that you guys considered or even thought about when you made the recommendation? Or am I wrong in thinking that that's what this is? Because it sure appears that it is. I think with that, I mean, spot zoning was not part of our discussion, but that is definitely something that we can bring back to the commission and look further into.
And really just, the benefit of that. I would kind of makes decisions easier if it's just not, whether you would or whether you wouldn't, it doesn't really matter because it kind of takes the decision out of your hands. And I think with the council, that's probably what, one of the bigger fights that I have at home is it really takes the decision out of your hands because if it is no spot zoning, it's going to be something. So maybe it'll become something that, isn't a battle between who does it, who doesn't. It just becomes an actual thing that we can't do it because of this one thing. But I don't know, you guys have any insight on that or not, but.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thank you for your comments. I mean, it definitely is helpful to us to really, like I said, we're trying to take in all the different perspectives and all the different variables when we talk about the recommendations that we have and why we would or wouldn't move forward with a recommendation. So I think we can, at least my initial thought, and you guys can tell me what you think, but my initial thought would be to table this with the rest of the group you know, Angie and
Like,
Mike, you know, to talk about, you know, what does that potentially look like if there were to be a change of an ordinance for how we communicate, you know, zoning changes and things like that in conjunction with how we're doing it now. So that people are,
Maybe it's even, you know, something like lasting is different than residential, because my research says that lasting affects foundations for up to 2 miles. So maybe if it was something like that, maybe the information goes out longer, you know, it's impacting, you know, a lot more people than just 200 people.
Or you can simplify it and say, we won't vote, let's like go to public hearing. That's an
Yeah.
easy way out, right?
right?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and like I said, it's hard because, you know, when we're looking at these,
It's a
there's,
moving place.
well, yeah, there's a lot of.
And there's a lot of things coming, and that's, I mean, it's a tall order. And I sincerely mean it when I say that I appreciate your efforts, because I wouldn't want to leave you speak for a lot of cards. A lot of this is way over my head. So thank you for the things you already made. Just maybe some, you know, some food for thought maybe going forward.
Thank you. Appreciate you all being here. So, I don't know if you guys had thoughts on that or if
I
anyone
think
wants
it's
to,
the table until everybody's talking about that kind of stuff.
want to make a motion to table it to the next meeting?
yeah, I'll make a motion to table the dog.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the next meeting, we can talk about notifications and how we potentially would want that to look. Okay. And then any other business? So this meeting didn't follow our normal schedule with the first Monday of the month. I
Right.
don't know if we wanted to meet again in May or if we wanted,
Because that would be Monday.
yes.
I have nothing to decide, do we?
That's up to you. Because the next meeting would not be until June 6th. That's the first Monday of the month.
I'm fine with Junior. What do you think?
I guess if everyone can be here, you know.
I think that allows for more time to plan and to communicate.
Sure, and
with
more
everybody.
communication through council to see, you know, what they want to do as well. I think that's probably.
We did.
Hard time making it there.
Everybody here, so
Okay, we'll just figure on June 6th.
Yep, that would be the next meeting.
Okay, so June 6th. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, June 6th. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I do think the text is a good idea.
Yes.
You got my phone number.
I don't know if I do or not, so.
Thank
Thank you, Peg.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
What's your number? 599.
Yes, yes.
I have your cell.
Thank you.
I'll give it to you again.
Oh, see, I was trying to keep up with notes.
451 2753.
There's lots of typing last time.
Okay. And then you have Heather, and Andrew, so we're good there.
Yeah, I haven't heard back from Angie, so I probably should verify it.
And then I have Mike.
Oh, this is awful. I can't even get back to Zoom.
I know, I have to be so close to it. You bet. Yep.
See you, Peg.
Hey, my hair can't get any wider.
Yeah.
Mine's starting, yeah. Not even from me pulling it, Jeff. No, no. That's okay.
We'll see you, Donnie.
Thanks.
Good luck with planning.
What's that?
Good luck with.
Hi, Deb.
Yeah, hopefully it straightens out.
Yeah, it should straighten out. See you, Deborah.
I just want you to know that.
Sorry, I'm trying to, this mouse is like,
Yeah, I figured.